Good evening, Namaste, Namaskar. Dr. Dhanuraj from CPPR, Mr. Frank Hoffman from FNF, Mr. Ramachandran, Excellency Fonef Rasad, delegates and participants from different parts of the world. Good evening to all of you. I would like to compliment CPPR and FNF for organizing this very timely and relevant conference, and would like to thank them for inviting me. I'm truly humbled and honored to be amongst such distinguished gathering here with so much of expertise, scholarship, and a wealth of knowledge. I wish I could stay here for the 2 days of deliberation and take back with me a lot of learning, but unfortunately I have to leave early tomorrow morning. But I'm looking forward to following up on the deliberation. I would request CPPR to prepare a note, and if it could be shared, that would be highly appreciated. At the outset, I would like to quote Charles Dickens from a very favorite novel of mine, A Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. Now, why do I call it the best of times? Why do I call it the spring of hope? I think at no point in human history has so many people been lifted out of poverty as it is today. I think we have moved on from the horrors of the world wars. We have moved on from the hostilities of the Cold War. And I think the world today certainly seems more peaceful, more secure, and the world is certainly becoming more multipolar. So that's the hope part, that's the hope part. And why, but is it really so? Is the world really more peaceful and more secure? Do we still think that is the best of times? Do we not see what's going on in the the Russia-Ukraine conflict? Do we not face the ugly truth of China's ugly behavior with its expansionism and hegemonic designs being witnessed almost on a daily basis in the region? So it certainly looks like the winter of despair as well. Now, in this context, this conference on peace and security in the Bay of Bengal region is extremely critical, because today, as was mentioned during the introductory remarks, the world order has shifted to the Indo-Pacific. And Bay of Bengal, being an integral part of the Indo-Pacific and probably being the most strategic part of the Indo-Pacific, has the greatest relevance in today's geopolitical and geoeconomic context. And hence, I think there could have not been a better topic to discuss and deliberate today than on the peace and security of the Bay of Bengal region. And also, it's close to my heart because I hail from a state, the state of Orissa in the eastern part of India, which is at the heart of the Bay of Bengal, and also has a 450 kilometers odd long coastline of the Bay of Bengal. Now, for ages, India has had maritime linkage with South Asia, with Southeast Asia, and my own state, which was formerly known as Kalinga, had a glorious maritime heritage and history. We traded all the way up to Bali, Java, Sumatra, and some scholars even claim that we traded with Papua New Guinea. Of course, to be debated. Similarly, the Chola kings had a glorious history of trade. In fact, the Bay of Bengal used to be called the Chola Lake in the past. So, the Bay of Bengal, if you read, there's a great book written by Dr. Sanjeev Sanyal called The Ocean of Churn. And in that book, he has extensively researched and argued that the center of global history was indeed the Bay of Bengal, linked by commerce, cultural exchanges with the adjoining region. However, much of this glory got lost in the 20th century. But today, as the Indian Ocean and the Indo-Pacific have become the center of gravity, geopolitical gravity, the Bay of Bengal region is reclaiming much of that lost glory and much of that relevance, at least economically and strategically. Now, Bay of Bengal is truly India's backyard. It's the largest nation in the region, and India's activities and interest in the region is closely watched and has message for the whole world, for the peace and security of the Bay of Bengal, of course, but for the larger world as well. Not only is India the largest country in the region in terms of its size, also in terms of its demographics, also in terms of its hard and soft power, India is the most influential nation in the region. So there is, of course, an expectation that India will be the net security provider of peace, net provider of prosperity in the region. And in my view, India has done a fairly good job of ensuring that the global order, the international rules-based order, which a certain country up north is trying to distort, is restored and maintained. India is trying its best to respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of other countries. And all of these are based on the timeless values of human rights, democracy, and of course, the value of non-violence, which is probably one of the greatest gifts of India to mankind. Now, most of us here know about the two foreign policy frameworks that India has been following to expound its foreign policy priorities in the last couple of years. One is the Act East policy, which is a successor to the Look East policy. And the Act East policy tries to engage meaningfully with countries in Southeast Asia. And the second platform or framework is the Neighborhood First policy, which is one of the signature policies of this government, the NDA 1 and NDA 2, headed by Prime Minister Modi. Now, the Bay of Bengal, as I mentioned, has become increasingly strategic for a host of regions because of Quad, because of the Taiwan conflict, because of the need to maintain freedom of navigation in this region, because this region, as was mentioned by Dr. Dhanuraj and others, is home to close to 22% of the world's population. Close to a quarter of world's trade passes through Bay of Bengal. It is the most densely populated region of the world. And just allow me to read out some numbers. 70 to 80% of China's energy imports goes through Bay of Bengal. 90% of Japan's energy imports are through Bay of Bengal. And of course, the state of Malacca, which is one of the very, very strategic points, is at the southern end of Bay of Bengal. So, in terms of strategic relevance, in terms of developmental priorities, I think no other region today has as much criticality as the Bay of Bengal region today. And the organization which is closely identified with this region is BIMTEC. Of course, all of us probably here are aware of BIMTEC. Now, India is one of the founding members of BIMTEC and one of the most prominent members of BIMTEC. Now, the goal of BIMTEC is to foster closer cooperation and engagement between the countries of the region. And as the region becomes a global geopolitical hotspot, BIMSTEC states that because of its geographical contiguity of the 7 countries, 5 in South Asia and 2 in Southeast Asia, because of its abundant natural and human resources, because of its rich historical linkage, because of the rich cultural heritage that I briefly spoke about, BIMSTEC is the ideal platform today to provide peace and prosperity, stability in this region. And today, if we have to achieve peace and stability and prosperity, the economic growth is sine qua non. We cannot think of peace in the region without achieving economic prosperity. And I'm gladdened to mention here that the region as a whole has been experiencing 6.5% GDP growth in the last 5 years, whereas the rest of the world is either sinking or having a very, very nominal 1 or 2% growth. Even developed economies in the West are today having negative economic growth or very low economic growth. So in that sense, the region is blessed to have robust economic growth, and close to 2 billion people, which is close to 22% of the world's population, reside in this region. And the GDP, the combined GDP of the region is close to $4 trillion now. So there are many healthy signals that the region can be a flag bearer of peace and prosperity, not only in the Bay of Bengal region, but also in the greater Indo-Pacific and generally in the rest of the world. Now, PM Modi's remarks were invoked here, and I would like to briefly speak of one other remark of PM Modi which he made in 2017 with regards to Bay of Bengal and BIMSTEC, and I quote, BIMSTEC not only connects South and Southeast Asia, but also the ecologies of the Great Himalayas and the Bay of Bengal with shared values, histories, ways of life and destinies that are interlinked. BIMSTEC represents a common space for peace and development, unquote. So essentially, PM Modi was urging the member countries to use the BIMSTEC platform as a bridge for interconnectedness, as a bridge for prosperity and security in the region. Now, as part of this, I must tell the audience here that India has introduced what is known as the Sagar Doctrine, security and growth for all in the region. Sagar is the acronym. Sagar in Sanskrit or in Hindi or in many other Indian languages means ocean. So it's very, very apt that we talk of the Sagar Doctrine while we speak of the Bay of Bengal region and while we speak of security and prosperity, because this has already been expounded by the doctrine itself, security and growth in the region. And the stated goals of the Sagar Doctrine includes, amongst others, the climate of trust and transparency, respect for international maritime rules and norms by all the countries, sensitivity to each other's interests, peaceful resolution of maritime security issues, and increase in maritime cooperation. So all of the issues that we would be deliberating over the course of the 2 days are almost expounded by the Sagar Doctrine. However, I must admit here that India's strategic and political, given India's strategic and political preeminence and influence in the Bay of Bengal region, India has been rather diffident. India has been rather diffident in taking a leadership role in reaching out to other countries and in playing the role of a regional player to ensure security and prosperity. I think part of that diffidence comes from the fact that we have an ongoing border conflict with China, and I think Government of India is very sensitive as to what it does and what it says because of this border conflict with China. But I think in order to ensure security and peace in the region, there can be no other player who needs to ramp up its influence, ramp up its presence and activities than India, if we truly hope to expect peace and prosperity in the Bay of Bengal region. And I wish there were more parliamentarians here. I wish there were more members of parliament and political leadership here, so that the message could go to the policymakers in South Bloc to MEA, Ministry of External Affairs, and to the Indian Parliament, that if India has to be seen as a relevant player in the greater Indo-Pacific, then India has to play a leadership role in the Bay of Bengal region specifically, and in the larger Indo-Pacific region generally, and has to set its inhibitions and diffidence. Now, despite the need for greater coherence and peace and security, there are some challenges. Why has BIMSTEC not been able to meet up its expectations? What are some of the challenges facing the region? I think this includes political instability. Some of the countries in the region are witnessing political instability. There are separatist and insurgencies tendencies, particularly Myanmar and a few other pockets of other countries in the region. Communal and regional conflicts, which has cross-border implication. It's another major challenge for the region. But there are in my view, three other challenges which are of greater seriousness and has to be addressed. First is, of course, the multi-dimensional challenge emanating from environmental degradation. I don't think any other region in the world today has as much threat as the Bay of Bengal region from climate change. Whether it's the acidification of the sea or whether it's the sea rise. And as I mentioned, some of the countries or the state of West Bengal in India, Bangladesh, some of these geographies are some of the most densely populated pockets of the world. So there will be a massive humanitarian crisis emanating from climate change and its unintended and harmful effects, and has to be addressed if we want to see prosperity and peace in the region. Increased militarization of the region, the political security implications. Now, I will not mince words here. China has been displaying its hegemonic tendencies, has been in conflict with most of the countries in the region, has been on a journey of expansionism, which is reminiscent of the medieval ages, and has significantly increased its military presence in the region, which is seriously destabilizing the greater Indo-Pacific and certainly the Bay of Bengal region. So this calls for greater international cooperation. This calls for calling out China's belligerent tendencies. And I think it's one of the foremost challenges confronting the region today. And the final challenge, of course, is the Taiwan issue, which PRC claims as an integral part of China, and literally intimidates the countries in the region to follow the One China policy. So, what happens across the Taiwan strait has relevance for not only the Taiwan strait, but also for the Bay of Bengal region, because of its geographical proximity and because of the wider ramifications if that conflict escalates. Now, I'll conclude with 2 or 3 recommendations which I think, and these recommendations are rather for Government of India, and I hope that this will be discussed with the seriousness it deserves, and Government of India deliberates on these recommendations seriously. I think we need to move from a reactive to a proactive policy when it comes to our region, when it comes to our neighbors, and certainly when it comes to the Bay of Bengal region. I think we need to ramp up our humanitarian and disaster relief efforts. I come from the state of Odisha, which is globally acclaimed today for its disaster management framework, for its work in the area of disaster management. So we have extremely successful models of disaster management in India today, not only from Odisha but also from other states. And I think we need to share it with our neighbors in the region. We need to offer our assistance technical assistance with respect to disaster management with other countries of the Bay of Bengal region. I think we need to, this was also mentioned by Mr. Ramchandran, the Northeast. The Northeast could be truly the gateway of India to ASEAN and to the rest of Bay of Bengal. So I think that economic interdependence with other countries in the BIMSTEC region should start with the Northeast, and also because of the economic complementarities of India's Northeast and the rest of Bangladesh and Myanmar and rest and Thailand, of course. So there is a lot of synergy and complementarity, and I think that needs to be enhanced. The Sagar doctrine, it's a wonderful ethos. I think that ethos of the Sagar doctrine has to be truly followed in letter and spirit, particularly with respect to regional connectivity. I think there is a massive opportunity to help the countries in the region with their infrastructure, with their connectivity. And I think there was some effort made by Government of India in that direction. I really hope that Government of India pursues it with the seriousness it deserves. And by making BIMSTEC truly a relevant platform of the Bay of Bengal, I think BIMSTEC as a platform, as a multilateral body, is constrained by resources. It has not had its meeting regularly. So I think India should take up the leadership role in ensuring that BIMSTEC is the platform of the Bay of Bengal region. And finally, I think strong political will. I think of late that political will is seen and is rather more visible. So I think that leadership role which India is going to take up in G20 in this year, and with the 75 years of Indian independence being celebrated this year, Azadi Ki Amrit Mahotsav, I think India will take this as the best opportunity to play that leadership role in the Bay of Bengal region, to ensure that peace and security is there in the region, and it certainly will be a win-win for all the 2 billion odd people of this region. Thank you.